Hello and welcome to our 2021 pre-harvest webinar. My name is Maria and I will be covering topics on how to prepare your winery for harvest. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please send them through. We will answer them as quickly as possible. To start off, let's go in through the app first. Again, with harvest approaching, you want to be able to capture maybe some observations or some analysis at the vineyard, and you can do that through the mobile app. So just by searching in a block, you're able to add an observation, add a lab, see history against that block, how many tons are expected, what have you received. Again, any metrics that you need to add. If you are out in the vineyard, you can click on the beaker and you can add a result. So you can throw in another bricks reading and so forth. Any other metrics you'd like to add, bud break, bunch weight, any metrics that you want to see against the block in specific. And just the calendar. Also, any fruit that you are expecting for that specific block, the bin with the fruit, what is ready to process, and what has already been completed. 3 dots far right corner gives you detail against your block. And also with harvest approaching, additives. From the mobile app, you can also make any adjustments. So let's go look at our DAP. And here you can pretty much go into the location icon and click anywhere on the locations that you have, and you can make an adjustment. Or you can move stock around as well. All right, so let's dive into vintrace. And let's start off with the winery setup. So by clicking on the vintrace logo, top left of your screen, it will open up the names for the icons. So let's go under setup. And I want to be under system policy. And if you're not familiar with this menu just yet, you can always type what you are searching for. So system policy. All right, so let's start with editing intake receipts. So here is where you want to tell vintrace how many Weighmaster copies you need. So for our database, we want 3 copies. We want one for our winery, grower, and truck. And you can pretty much put as many as you need, maybe just 1, 2. You can type in a message of what you want the display to look like and save. And editing your thresholds. So when you're doing transfers or just any general operations that will carry a gain or a loss, you may see maybe like a 20%, or depending on what you have, you can change that here. If you want to see maybe a 3% loss, you want to be warned, you can set that here. If you want that to be 5%, you can also set that here. You can also add extraction thresholds. So a minimum rate per gallon per ton. So 125, anything below 125, you'll be flagged. And same with the max gallon per ton. I've set this to 180, so I would be flagged. And editing your booking view. So you can also do this from the fruit intake. But here you can select what details you want to show. You can move them around with the arrows in different order as well. And these can also be defaulted by user as well. Editing default extraction rates. So far, we've got must. So for any reds, the fraction type, I'll set to must. So I want my rate to be 155 gallons per ton. I can add another one and say that my free run will be at 160 and save. Work order indicators, again, this is just what goes top right corner of your work order. You can come in here and add whatever you do based on your winery. But you can see here some examples, and again, it's free text, add them in. And from here, let's go and jump more into production. So here is where you can come in and edit some of your existing, maybe sub-AVAs, appellations, forest type, variety. If you no longer are working with a variety, you can just click into the variety, make it active, and save. You can set Neutrellus type, vintage, make sure that you've got 2021 in there already. You can also set the default for 2021 under default, and I will show you that as well. And then let's jump to fruit sources. So here is where you can come in and search for a specific grower. And by clicking onto the vineyard, it will give you all of the block details. So you can click into the block and make the edits that you need. So maybe you can rename your block if you need to change that. Also, you can make these edits from the blocks icon. So quickly jumping into the blocks icon, you do have a display for all of your blocks. So again, same deal, jump into your block. Wherever you see this pencil, you have the ability to edit. From here, you can also create a new grower, new vineyard, new block as well. Top right corner, you can add a block as well. All right, so let me head back into winery setup, and I will go back into just production. Or no, let me just go fruit sources. I think that's where I was. All right, so again, you can edit your blocks from here or go from the blocks tab. All right, and then grower contracts. So with grower contracts, if you are contracting fruit, you can pretty much create these and make them as vague or as detailed as you'd like. So if we go new grower contract, you can pretty much make this as vague as selecting your grower. And any fruit coming from this grower, you want your default price ton to be $3,000. Maybe you've got 80 tons contracted, so you get your total expected cost. You can give it your contract name, so I'll just go with VW for vintrace winery contract. Plug in your vintage, your start date, your end date. You can also add a freight cost here. And also one thing to keep in mind is this defer payment. Make sure that this box is not ticked. If you notice that maybe you are looking at some of your wines and you do not see any fruit cost flowing through, go back to your grower contract and make sure that this box is not ticked. This will stop the fruit cost flowing through to the wine batch. All right, so again, very vague, just the grower, and anything coming in from this grower will be $3,000 per ton, and save. Now, if we want to go in and bring in more detail, I want to select the same grower, and maybe I want to go with my JX2 Napa Vineyard, and I can be specific to a block and a variety. and my default price will be $3,500, and I've contracted 40 tons. And again, my VW Cap Franc contract. And your start date and your end date. And your freight price if you want to add that in. I think I chose an incorrect Cap Franc. What is this? Oh, there we go. It's the variety Cap Franc. There we go. All right, perfect. All right, so now let's jump into additives. So with additives, you want to make sure that you have set under all of your yeast that you want vintrace to cause a treatment to start alcoholic fermentation. So whenever you make that addition, vintrace will automatically trigger that fermentation to start, so you don't have to come in manually and start them. So also make sure for any malolactic that you're also adding, make sure that that is also set. So for example, malic bugs, you've got the start ferment mallow. And also for any SO2 additions, your KMBS, make sure that you have that initial weighting. And you can pretty much add that by adding the free SO2 metric and typing in that weighting, adding it, and you should be set. And again, this is just to get proper calculation when making SO2 additions. All right, and you can also do this with your 6% solution. If you've got a 10% solution, you can also do that. All right, and then additive templates. So you want to make sure that if you are a new customer to vintrace, that you set these up ahead of time. Again, it will save you time when going in and making additions. Maybe you are short on time, you just need to get work orders out to the seller, or you're just playing catch up. So by creating these ahead of time, you are telling vintrace that you want to make an addition of yeast plus some nutrients, and the cost treatment you want to start the fermentation. Also, you've got this product state that you can pretty much add to the state of a wine at any stage. So after the yeast addition, we want vintrace to mark it as inoculated. And again, this can also help for easy searching under the vessels page. All right, and with any other additions where you want that product state to change, you can create that under additive templates. For example, you've got your nutrient adds, go firm. You want the product state to nutrient 1 add done. We've got a second add as well. And also templates can be great for any SO2 additions. So if you want to make an SO2 addition and you want to target a 35 ppm free for all of your wines, you can say that you're adding SO2 to target 35, the rate. So this is what you want your free sulfur at, so 35, and you want to tick this box for target. So if I go in and add a new template, I can go KMBS add, and my product state can be oops, I probably have to create this. SO2 added 30 ppm. And then plug in your additive. And my rate will be 30 and save. All right, analysis templates. So again, this will save you plenty of time if these are created ahead of time. And again, if you are new to vintrace, create these same with additive templates. If you are already an existing customers, it's good to double check that all of the templates are current. If you need to swap out maybe some additives, maybe you're switching the technique, you're adding a different yeast, you can go and update that as well. Same with the analysis template. So for your analysis template, we recommend you have maybe some good examples are like fruit intake analysis. You've got your Brix temp, your TA, your pH. You want to default for fruit receival. And this is good because you can show this on the California Grape Crush report. And also you've got your ferment dailies for Brix and temp. And if you're doing any punch overs or pump overs, you can also set up a template and include your Brix and temp, your AM, PM punch overs, and the duration. So all of this can be set up through a metric. So you've got your pump over based on a yes or no, and then you've got your pump over duration time, and this can all be added in as a template. So here we've got pump over AM, PM, and here is that layout. So you've got your Brix and temp, pump over AM, duration minutes for the AM, and your pump over PM and your PM duration. And you're defaulting for ferment. And another one that's good for harvest is your vineyard samples. So you can default what you want to show whenever you're running those samples, and you can default this to fruit sampling. All right. And then your standard notes. So these are your SOPs, your procedures that you want to see on the work order. You can create a new standard note, and if you already have these procedures maybe on Excel or PDF where you have the ability to copy from, just copy the procedure and paste it here, and it'll save you a few minutes of typing. And if you are no longer using that procedure, you can just make it inactive or edit. We can also export if it's easier for you to see exactly what that procedure is and if you need to update anything. All right, and then we've got workflow. So autocodes. So autocodes can be good, for example, if you are bringing in new barrels, you want to set up an autocode to bring in multiple barrels at a time instead of having to bring in one by one. You do have the option to export headers and bring in barrels also through imports, and I will show you that, that process as well. But for example, if we go under this barrel policy, pretty much you just have to enter your code elements, what you want to see on that code. So it's the 2 digits for vintage, the Cooper, and this will be incrementing numbers. So far my count is 175. So if I want to go in and create new barrels, I will just go under vessels, go under barrels, new barrels, and this auto code here is where I want to X out, click on the wand, and select my barrel policy. So for this, I will need my vintage, 2021, my capacity, my Cooper, and how many barrels I need. So I want to bring in 20 barrels. and save. All right, so if I search my 21, maybe Vermont, you will see those have been brought in. And if I go back to my auto code and look at my barrel, you can see that from 175, it went up to 195. So vintrace will keep that count. As long as you select this, keep the number unique. All right, and then you've got defaults. So this is where you can come in and default your vintage, your winery, the scaled, crusher, press, your work order format when you are printing. If you want to skip wine declaration, so yes, you want to do that based on the calendar year when you are declaring your wines, and preferred like TTB period, how often are you running? You can default that here. All right, so now let's go into vessels. So going under vessels, you've got the ability to go and edit existing records. So barrels, tanks, you can pretty much export, change the name, change the capacity. And as long as you select update existing records, vintrace will do those changes for you without you having to go in one by one and change that. And same deal with the barrels. Maybe some of these barrels need to be 59. You can export your barrel registry, just change the capacity column, remove any other columns that you are not changing, just keep the code and the change of the 59 gallons. And once you select your file to import, must be as a CSV format. And again, choose your file and select update existing records. And bringing in new barrels via the importer. So pretty much you can come in here and download headers. The mandatory fields for you to bring in new barrels without having to add all details. It's pretty simple. So I will go in with an example that I've got saved already. But pretty much your mandatory fields will be the name, the owner, the location, winery of your multi-winery, and the capacity. Any other field is optional. And you do have the option to just bring in necessary details, come in later, export, and bring in additional detail. So far, I just want to bring in just the basics. So now to import. I click under the import export, upload my file. Upload and import barrel registry. And continue. So my barrel room, I just put location barrel room. vintrace is going with a mapped name in vintrace. So you can come in here, and the barrel room that I have called barrel room has California. If I want a barrel room just named barrel room, I have the teal plus sign to create that on the spot. So I'm just going to go with my barrel room California and continue. And now we have successfully imported 50 barrels. So if I go find my 21 barrels or 50 barrels that I brought in, here they are. And with the import export, only the local vintrace admin has this permission. So if your role will be bringing in new barrels, you do not have this permission, please reach out to your local vintrace admin. If they are not available, you can email support or give us a phone call and we can assist you. All right, now retiring barrels. since we are in the barrel section. So if you need to retire barrels or you are selling barrels, you want to run a treatment. So you want to run a treatment against barrels, and you have the ability to create the treatment, call it retiring barrels, sold barrels, and deactivate barrels when used. You can also require a bill of lading to be printed, and also require a party to be selected. So this is good if you are selling barrels. You want to know exactly who you are selling them to. And you can plug in here that you are selling barrels to, for example, Sonoma-Cutrer, and they will be your party. So I've got an example here. So sold barrels deactivate barrels when used. I want my bill of lading. And then also retiring barrels because they are damaged or leaking, and deactivate barrels when used. If you go and deactivate barrels one by one without running a barrel treatment, you won't be able to run a report in vintrace to know exactly how many barrels were retired in, for example, the month of July. You can go under barrels and see how many barrels are inactive. But that is about it. There is no way from here to know when exactly. Now, by running the barrel treatment, you have the option under reports and operations to run a barrel treatment report specific to the treatment name, and even a party if you are running it on sold barrels. All right, and the next one will be vineyard samples. So with your vineyard samples, you can go into your block's icon. And you can go into a specific block, and you can record if you only have a handful of samples. You don't want to go through the lab or the sample set console. You can go under the lab section and record a fruit sample. Make sure your vintage is already defaulted. I've had instances where I go off of 2020 and then I'm like crazy looking for my fruit samples. So make sure that your vintage is defaulted. And then go add record fruit sample, and you can remove any that you are not running. You can add new ones. And again, this is going off of the vineyard samples template. So plug in your value now and save. So you're adding in metrics, and you've got the box on the left where you can chart and see the progress. All right, and by adding your fruit samples this way, automatically it gets brought into vintage 2021. I'll go into the sample set console, and if you guys recall there, you have to do that transfer of 2020 blocks into 2021 vintage blocks. So here, as long as you default 2021, you record your fruit sample, automatically it will be added to the list on the sample set console. And then here you have any readings. For example, you don't care for any sugar levels that are not over 19. So you can pretty much go in 3 lines and add a filter, max 19. Anything below 19 you don't care for. And this is just kidding, got it the wrong way. I always do this. There we go. Okay, perfect. So again, anything below 19 you don't care for, just above 19, so you can apply these filters. All right, so let's jump over to the sample set console, and that'll be under more options. and it will live under maturity samples. So here again, if you search, you'll see just the few blocks that have been brought over either through here or just from the blocks icon. But if you need to bring them in, you can go under quick add and maybe type in your grower or just your blocks, or just doing a search. And again, it will bring over all of your blocks. Keep in mind that some already live here for 2021. So it's just selecting specific blocks, setting your vintage, adding the owner, the vineyard samples for the template, and saving. And they've been added. So now if I would need to print out labels for my baggies, I can go based on my JX2 Napa Vineyard. And I can go labels at the bottom. I can say I only need one label per block, and okay. So now you've got your nice labels for your bags. In entering results, you can go add and bring them in one by one, or you can download into CSV file. For today, yes, my vineyard samples. And you've got all of the vineyard samples for today. And here is where you can plug in your results. Saving it as a CSV format, closing this, and just uploading and choosing your file. All right, let's see. All right, now let's dive into the fruit intake. So booking in your fruit, you have the ability to go under new and go schedule booking or unplanned arrival. A scheduled booking, you can come in here and specify when you are expecting fruit, what time. So let's go 7 a.m. and the duration. So maybe a window of 2 hours. And bringing in the block will bring in all of the details against that block. On the right side, you can bring in the harvest method, whether it's hand-picked or machine-picked, how many tons you are expecting, and number of loads. If maybe you are receiving these 10 tons in 2 loads, you can say 2. You are more than welcome to fill out additional detail, but the mandatory fields pretty much are highlighted in blue and giving the seller or whoever will be at the scale house how many tons they should expect is also nice. And save. So now processing some fruit. So I went ahead and created a work order. So I believe is this first one. So if I go under arrive and view crush note, I have my extraction here. So from here, I can just jump in to complete. And then you'll go in with a date and time, how much fruit you've got available to process. You can specify if you need to only process half of the fruit, or if all of the fruit will go, just leave all of the weight here. You have your intake tank. So your tank, your new batch code, the type will be must. And again, that default gallon per ton will be defaulted. You plug in your weight, and vintrace will give you that estimated volume. You can add a line and bring in an additional tank. Maybe you are using some of this Pinot for a rosé, so you want to saunier 25 gallons out. You can also make an addition to the fruit. So KMBS, I'm adding 55 grams. You can add notes. Under documents, you can upload a picture of your fruit. And if you need to make an addition to the tank itself, you can, or not here. Oh yeah, go with the pill salt shaker and request your addition. And again, it'll go off of the estimated volume that you already have selected or what vintrace gave you. All right, and if all looks good, you can go ahead and save this. And one thing to keep in mind, if you select this for juice use only, you'll get this message. So pretty much this is like a juice and go. You are not intending to ferment this juice at the winery. So if you accidentally select for juice use only, you will not be able to ferment. You'll have to give us a call and we will walk you through the process of removing this for juice use only. If you select this and save this, vintrace will automatically place these gallons under a juice tax class on your TTB report. All right, so save. And of course, my rosé, it's saying that it's not a must, but that's fine. It's just warning you. All right, and that extraction operation has been completed. All right, and let's see what's next. All right, so viewing the calendar. So you also get the calendar icon on the left side, but you can also access through the fruit intake. So you've got what you are expecting for either the full week, you can go for the day, and you can print out your bookings and hand this off to the seller. And let's see. All right, and heading back into the fruit intake, if you need to make any addition, not any additions, any changes to the fruit that you have received, maybe the tons are incorrect, the blocks are incorrect, you can go under Arrive drop-down menu and go under Correct. So here is where you can fix your weight, change the block, and save. All right, and also running reports from the fruit intake. So pretty much you can run reports, and under print, if you forgot to print out your weighmaster certificate, you can click onto it, go print, and in vintrace we call it docket original. So you'll have that that printout. And again, like I mentioned, with how many copies you need. So for example, this is my winery copy. Then I've got my grower copy and my truck copy. So vintrace automatically will default to print 3 copies for you. All right, and then you've got the scale worksheet. So this is mainly if you are receiving your fruit in bins. So you can do your bin number, your weight, and any comments against it. And under the little wrench, you can come in here and click on the pencil. Same view that we viewed under winery setup. Here is where you can move around how you want to see the order of the fruit that has been received. And again, you can add new ones and you can default this by user as well. Um, all right. And then let's dive into our tank map. So I've already created a tank room, and I will show you how to create that. But just looking at it and going over the tank card, you can see exactly details of the tank, any recent labs. This one means that there is one work order pending against it. If you click on the one, it will tell you the work order number and what type of operation. For example, this tank here is empty, but you have one work order pending against it. So this can also be good for planning during harvest. If you are big on the tank map, you are trying to see your open space. But if you have empty tanks and you have a 1 or a 2, depending, all this means is you have a work order already scheduled against this empty tank. So you know that maybe you can rule this one out as you've got a transfer going into T1-07. And creating your tank map. So you can go teal plus sign top right corner, new tank map. Give it the name and how many tanks you want to be able to see horizontally or vertically. Descriptors, so what you would typically place on your tank card. So I don't care about the grading or the batch owner. I want the ferment state, maybe a description, and the mallow state. And this is good for harvest. So you can also use the tank map, the metrics as a stage throughout the wine. So maybe for that initial phase, I want to show a brix, a temperature, a pH. Where's the temp? And a TA. And you can move them around, again, different order. All right, so once this has been set, you can go next and it will take you, oops, my winery. There we go. Next, to search your wines. So from search, and I want to go, I'll just go with my T tanks and search. So I've got 100 in here. You can pretty much, and again, this is just going on the max result. So if you've got more than that, you can always remove that. If you've got less, you don't want, and again, you can create multiple tank maps. You can have your master and then sub tank rooms, just however you want to see it displayed. And again, this can be based on user, what you want to see. All right, so I can select all and use. So they will nicely drop in. And then you can start designing your tank map. I'm not the best at this, so forgive me. But I just want you to see my lovely example. Okay, let's throw these random ones here. All right, and let's save. Let's hope I grabbed some tanks that are full. Yep. All right, so same deal, go over the tank card. You will see the state of the wines, any metrics. Again, this is great to be tracking some of these metrics. As soon as they are done through fermentation, they move into a different phase. You're running a different chemistry panel. Go in and update your metrics. And you can update your tank map by clicking on the gear and edit tank map. So then you can remove your brix, your temp, keep pH, TA. Maybe you're checking an alcohol, and RS, malic, acetic acid. And again, you only have up to 5 metrics. And then you can go next and pretty much skip the whole tank searching for your tanks because you already have that layout, and just save it, and that will update your metrics. All right. And let me dive quickly into the vessels page before I head into reports. But pretty much once you are starting to put fruit into tank, again, the vessels page will be very helpful because you have these headers that you can bring in through filters. So again, depending on the stage of the wine, the phase that is going through, you can bring in the metrics that you are running, a product state to see that this wine has been inoculated. This one is still fermenting. It's still going through your daily B's and T's. This one has had a first nutrient add. And again, applying the lovely filters that I always get wrong. So again, if you want to see any bricks below 5, hope I get this right, plug your number in and you'll get them. And you can pretty much make this a safe search. Once they are going dry, you can pretty much from here select them all and do an operation and record a specific task against it. All right, and then let's dive into reports. All right, so with your product analysis, here you can run a nice PDF on the analysis daysheet, but we also offer a CSV file, so an Excel, depending if you are, you like to maybe edit, modify, definitely go with an Excel on that one. And then you've got your fruit samples. So this is just your sample day sheet. Again, it can be run as a CSV, as a PDF. And you can select just for the day or for the week and run it. And you can also, again, run it as a CSV if you need to send this off to, what was that, like Dropbox? I don't know if people are still using that. And again, or your nice PDF that you can send off as well. All right, so let's generate this. And again, it's nice little detail on what you have recorded against your blocks. All right, and then we've got under vintage harvest. So you've got your crush extraction report for the California Grape Crush Report, grower and varietal. And your grape delivery report, so you can see exactly how much fruit you brought in, how much you processed on any given vintage. You do have the option to run as a PDF. If you switch over to CSV, you get additional fields, so you can show analysis and decide if you want to use fruit metrics or use first analysis on the fruit or juice. And you can summarize the bookings. So by summarizing the bookings, vintrace will give you the initial batch code where that fruit landed. And again, that is after you swap from being in PDF format. Again, you don't have that those additional filters, but swapping over to CSV, you get that option. All right, and the fruit placement report. So you can just run it for the vintage in specific and see exactly where that block has been. You can be block specific. Same with the group fruit placement report. You can run it for a specific vineyard block. You can see, again, where it landed, if you still have it in bulk wine, meaning in tank or barrel, what has been dispatched, maybe like as a bulk sale, or what has been bottled. All right, so that pretty much covers the pre-harvest webinar. If I missed something, please let me know, and we will get back to you either answering questions through this webinar, or we will send you an email through our ticketing system. All right, so again, if you have any questions, I can go over the questions that we got. So one of them was, let me go find it. Can you add cost details still with the barrel Excel list import? So the answer is yes. I can't recall the exact field name, but I can definitely check that and just email the winery. And let's see, what's the other one? How do you default your vintage for vineyard sampling? So if we go winery setup, and this can be defaults, you can default your vintage here. But if you are going through the sample set console, more options, maturity samples, quick add. If it's defaulted, it will already live here. But if you have not defaulted your vintage just yet through winery setup, you have the option to default it here. All right. And then can you note whole cluster percentage, etc.? Yes, you can do that. But first you have to make sure that you have whole cluster set up. So if I go under an extraction operation, here, the type must live here. And if you don't see this as not an example, as an option, and you want whole cluster, just send us an email. We will have to replace, I think, pressing slide overnight. And this other, I think, this other one, can't remember. But pretty much let us know which one you're willing to sacrifice, and we will place whole cluster in there. All right, and Saunier. So if you're not using the Saunier at the extraction level, if you do it after your tank is full, you can always do this as a press cycle. So once your tank is full, you can come in here and say 25 gallons out, and it's a Saunier. So you can do it this way as well. All right. And vineyard. So currently, of course, you can take photos using the app, but unfortunately, you cannot view the photos through the desktop version. This is something that the team is aware of, and I will check on the status of that. But as of now, unfortunately, you cannot see photos in the desktop. You will have to go in through the app. All right, so can you please go over the page above the vessels page? So the vessels page, okay, so your dashboard. So these are insights against your winery. So far, number of jobs, tons received so far, and you can see percentage differences from previous year, production losses, volume of wine on hand that currently sits in tank and barrel. This does not include any wine that is currently bottled in bond. The cost of the wine, fruit that has been booked, and down below just dashlets. So more insight against your winery. If you want to bring in more dashlets, teal plus sign, right side, new dashlet.
And this one is based on user accounts, so yours can look different to another user at the winery. All right. For sparkling, can you press from the same grape to cuvee 80%? Yes, so it's another setup that we can do with the extractions. So please send us an email to support or book in a call with us, and we can definitely help you set those up in vintrace, and pretty much can be tailored to your database. The dashboard. So can you go through how to create berry sampling labels? Yeah, so I hope I'm understanding correctly, but if we go in through more options, maturity samples, you can pretty much, again, come in here and search your vineyard and the existing blocks against it. So if you need to print out labels, you can just come down here and select labels. And you can say how many labels you need, and that should generate that sampling label. So if I'm understanding correctly, you want the ability to print maturity samples across multiple vineyards. Let's see. So if we remove the vineyard and I guess if it lives within the same grower, you can select the grower. If we hit search, it will throw in everything. And then you can do a CSV for it. It wouldn't necessarily give you a nice PDF, but at least you have a printout. And it'll give you the fields that you need to fill in. And once you've got these filled in, you can pretty much upload your results. I hope I answered that. And if I was not clear, please send us an email to support and we can jump on a call. If you turn off costing for specific individuals, can they still see fruit cost? No. The tab will be removed if you turn off costing. You can you can still show view cost, but I believe there is another permission that like asks you, or you know what? Why? Let me just jump in there. Why am I making this hard on myself? Open address book, manage system users, and let me go to Sierra's. So you can see, can remove this one, can adjust cost, and just leave can view cost. Can you add in fruit cost after vintage is over? So yes, you can add fruit cost after the vintage is over. And the cost will go up against the block and per intake. And you can also set a cost against at the block level. So if you know exactly what that cost will be for the block, by going into the specific, like a specific block, you can pretty much go edit the block, and under admin comments, you can default that rate. So you don't have to worry about it. And again, if you do not know your costs till vintage is over, we can still upload them. But again, it's going to be based on the block level and per intake, per load. Can you create a report from spray recordings? Unfortunately, not at the moment. And this is something that we are working on as well. The only option that I can suggest And this is just a workaround to get something. It can be double entry for you, but if you just add in possibly a general note, like a general task, where are you? A general task, and you can put a summary in here and instructions: spray my Bella Vineyard and my Scarlet block. So pretty much you can add it as a general task, print it as a work order, and you can run some type of reporting with work orders in vintrace, at least for the moment. How does the programs under workflow work? And can you start this from harvest all the way through bottling? Yes. So pretty much, if you are big on programs, meaning that you have your like designated varietals under a program. If, for example, you have your Sonoma Coast blends, that can be just your program. If you have like a Russian River also program, that can be another program. You can set it up against the fruit. So whenever you're bringing in that fruit intake and you create that initial wine batch, you can set that up there. So programs, configure. So yeah, you can pretty much select one for like all of your Pinots, and it'll be like your Pinot program. And whenever you create a wine batch, where is it? Here. You're able to assign that program here. So if you have selected initial programs at the beginning, and as soon as you're tasting your blending and you realize that this Pinot is really good and you want it to move up to that tier, to that premium Pinot, then you can change the program and move it into a different program. And you can see that with reporting. If you run like an activity summary report based on program, you'll see those ins and outs of programs. All right, so it looks like we don't have any other questions. So I will still be on for a couple more minutes if you have any questions. And if something was not clear, please send us an email to support, and we will be holding our harvest webinar pretty soon. Let's see, can an individual user change his or her view of the lab section unit when viewing analysis results? No. So the metrics, those are set up against the database as a whole. So it wouldn't be based off user account, unfortunately. All right, so we've got one more. So we are wondering the best way to build a barrel from several components to add to an existing barrel group. For example, I have 4 15-gallon kegs I would like to blend into one barrel to become part of an existing barrel group. Yes, you can pretty much do that. And you can, for example, if you can search your kegs and select them. I'll use this as an example. It's not the best, as these are not kegs and possibly not small quantities, but pretty much select your 4 kegs, scroll down to the bottom, actions, and it'll be a transfer many to one, or wait, not many, many to one. So you've got your out amounts for your kegs and the vessel. This is where you want to select that barrel. So you've got your barrel, and this is where you can give it that new, if that existing blend name. So we'll just go ahead and use my Pinot. Uh, so once you have saved this, you can pretty much grab your full barrel and then do a transfer into the barrel group. And if you need to get this done, just give us a call into support and we can walk you through the process on a screen share.